Hello, everyone. It's 11:30 Eastern here. I'm going to wait a couple more seconds for the last couple people to kind of funnel in. But today's webinar is going to be on Mathcad Prime 7, the changes it brings to the Mathcad Prime product, as well as some updates on the Mathcad Prime software. So with that in mind, looks like everyone's in. They'll be here. Let's get underway. So what we're going to talk about today is, like I said, talk about what's new in Mathcad Prime 7 and all the changes coming with it, as well as just Mathcad Prime. So if you look at our little agenda here, I'm going to give a brief introduction to myself and Boundary Systems. Then we're going to hop into what's new in Creo's Prime or Mathcad Prime 7 itself, and then also talk about the older Mathcad Prime versions and how PTC is going about sunsetting those softwares. At the end, I'll open it up to Q&A. And so you'll notice that all of you are muted right now. It will stay like that for the entirety of the webinar. If you have questions at any point, you can put them in either the chat or the questions pane and I'll see them. But I will be answering them towards the end of the webinar. So, a little bit about myself. My name is Anthony Vetterini. I'm a technical specialist with Boundary Systems. I own a Bachelor's of Science in Engineering in Aerospace and Mechanical Engineering. And I have about 4 going on 5-ish years working with CAD and FEA tools, math tools, programming, all that sorts. I've been using Mathcad for just about 2-3 years now, so good understanding of it. Past myself and a little bit about Boundary Systems. We are a product development consulting company based out of Cleveland, Ohio. Specifically, we partner along PTC, e.t.c, and we're also a part of the PDSVISION group, which gives us a kind of global capabilities, which you see on the map on the right. In terms of capabilities, we do a lot of product lifecycle management and data management through use of our cloud services. We also do CAD design and consulting and simulation consulting as part of our whole product development aspect of our business. In terms of some awards that we have achieved, we've been noted in the Inc. 5000 and Weatherhead 100, and we're also a PTC Platinum Partner, which gives us a great deal of capabilities when it comes to helping you regarding PTC products. We're also certified trainers in various products such as Creo, Windchill, Mathcad, and Arbortext. Last slide is that although we're the PTC Platinum Partner I just talked about, we do service other types of softwares. For example, Cymerics in the bottom right is a flow analysis software, a CFD tool. Keyshot is like photo rendering. So we do have softwares that meet whatever needs you might have. But past that, we're going to kind of dive into what's new in Creo 7, or Mathcad Prime 7. Sorry about that. The first tool or new feature is the combo box input control. What this is going to let you do is have essentially many values that or many different parameters you can choose from in a drop-down list, which you see in the bottom right image. Kind of works like radio icons if you're familiar with earlier Mathcad products. It allows you to easily switch between variable definitions. So you can set a variable equal to this table, and then you can use the table drop down to select which value you're using in your calculations. And you can use multiple different types of combo box inputs and use these values throughout your worksheet. And so we'll see a little bit of an example of that towards the demo session. Past that, the next big improvement is improvements to the Mathcad Prime document converter. So the first big aspect about it is that we no longer need Mathcad 15 installed to convert our documents. So if you're on an earlier build of Mathcad, like Mathcad 15, 14, or even earlier, this converter will help you bring those files over into Mathcad Prime. And yeah, we'll see that a bit later. Symbolics, there's been a great deal of enhancements into the Mathcad Prime Symbolic Engine. The first thing is that the Symbolic Engine from Mathcad Prime 6 and earlier has been removed. This is no longer part of Mathcad Prime, and it's now just the new default Symbolic Engine. If you've been using Mathcad Prime 6 and you haven't been changing over the engine, you would have already been using this new engine. It was the default in Mathcad Prime 6, and now it's the only option in Mathcad Prime 7, and going forward, it will be the only option. The overall improvements is just kind of how the engine works, the overall performance and error detection, aspects of the Symbolic Engine solver. We also have a few different enhancements in terms of using the solve keyword. So you're able to just type in solve to use the symbolic engines. We've also added support for integrals piecewise functions. And so these have all been added in to give you greater use of your symbolic engine in Mathcad Prime. In terms of usability, the big change here is that now we are now able to just save our Mathcad worksheet directly to a PDF from the Save As menu, which you can kind of see on the image on the right. We do also have some enhancements just to the traditional mouse buttons, such as zoom, scrolling. And we are now also able to turn on our major grid lines from our document menu or document tab, which you can see in the bottom image. The last big enhancement is that the API guide is now free, and you are able as a user to kind of just see code examples of how to use it. So there's no different software package you have to buy to use the API guide. If you're not familiar, this API guide allows you to actually incorporate Mathcad Prime into other Windows applications, or you can use it in your own custom standalone applications. So there's a bunch that goes into that. I'll show you where you can find this API guide. We won't have any demonstrations of it. And so that's all that's new in Mathcad Prime 7. And now we have to talk about the updates or changes coming to Mathcad Prime. Effective on December 31st of this year, so 2021, PTC is no longer able to sell or provide downloads for Mathcad Prime 6 or earlier. So that includes Mathcad 15 and then Mathcad Prime 1 through 6. PTC will no longer be able to sell or download those, or you will no longer be able to purchase them or download them. So what that means is that any subscription license issued after January 1st of 2022, those licenses will only work in Mathcad Prime 7. So past that Mathcad Prime 7 update, you do still have the option of doing a multi-year subscription license renewal for any of you who need to use or prefer to use Mathcad Prime 6 or earlier. You are limited in that you can only purchase a subscription license for up to 4 years. You need to have this kind of done by December 1st so everything can be processed in time. And also, for anyone who might have a perpetual license of Mathcad, you first need to convert that to subscription before you're able to purchase a multi-year renewal. And so this is, again, for people who just prefer or need to use Mathcad Prime 6 or earlier, depending on functionality. But again, you'll only be able to purchase this one time for up to 4 years, the license. So what does that mean you need to do? If you could plan, as a Mathcad Prime user, what we recommend you do is to assess Mathcad Prime 7 and ensure that it fits your needs. So if you're someone who's using Mathcad 15 or earlier, we'd recommend downloading Mathcad Prime 7 and using the converter to convert legacy documents. From there, you can see that if the documents are brought into Mathcad Prime 7 properly and everything works, you'll know that you'll be able to migrate over to Mathcad Prime 7. If not, so if there's any failures in your conversions of your documents, we can check in with PTC and see what's going wrong, what functionality might not be there, or we can just work with them to get them converted properly if the functionality is available in Mathcad Prime 7 and maybe the converter just isn't working properly. So that's something that we recommend everyone do. Is use this converter if you need it. Check back with us if you have any issues, and we can work with PTC to get those fixed up. And if you go through this whole process and you determine that Mathcad Prime 7 does not fit your needs, we'd recommend that you do look into purchasing that multi-year subscription renewal so that you'll be able to use Mathcad Prime 6 or earlier for up to 4 years. But again, you're not going to be able to download the software containing these old Symbolic engines, which is the issue or reason that these are getting sunset. So you'll need to ensure that you have, your own Mathcad Prime downloader, as we will no longer be able to download that software. On top of that, since again the software is being sunset, there's going to be no support for any bugs or any possible security issues down the road that might happen with these softwares. So that's something that you'll need to also take into account if you plan to continue using earlier versions of Mathcad or Mathcad Prime. And so that kind of talks about the full concept of Mathcad Prime and the sunsetting of earlier versions. So what I'm going to demonstrate is a little bit of Mathcad Prime and show off some of the functionalities I talked about earlier. So let me leave this. And so right here is just Mathcad Prime. So, Mathcad Prime 7 looks the same, overall feel of the earlier builds of Mathcad Prime. So we could still, double click on images, change the colors, do whatever there. And, that's all embedded inside of Mathcad Prime. So I just changed that square from blue to green. But an example of what's new in Mathcad Prime 7 are these combo box inputs. So here was we're setting a variable called E, Young's modulus, and we have a wide table of inputs here. What we could do is right click and edit, and we could see how this was made. And it's made very similar to like a matrix. So if you come over to your matrices tab, you could insert below to insert another row, for example, and create your own material. So I'll just call it myself and give it a value. You can also add in different columns. So instead of just setting one variable equal to this input box, you could set multiple variables and have like a full table of data. And so for example here, you could just select from this drop down what you're using in your calculations. So we'll just leave it as AJ, the random material I just made here. And you could go through and look at your sheet, and all of your sheet values will update based on what you placed. There's still the capabilities of all these like 2D plots, Excel capabilities, programming. We have like 3D plotting still. All of this functionality is still there. Nothing has really changed, and only improvements come to it. And so if we come back to the top, we could change it over to, let's say, I don't know, nylon. Give it a couple moments to recalculate out, and you could go through your sheet like that. And so that's how the combo box kind of works. The next thing I have to show is the save as functionality. We can save directly to a PDF. So now if I come to save as, we have this PDF format option, and so we can choose that. We'll call it just, my name webinar, save it. And it got created. And so if I open it, you can see this PDF we saved it directly to a PDF, AJ_webinar, and everything is, printed out like that as a readable PDF file now. That's a new usability enhancement there. The next thing is regarding the major grid lines. So it might be hard to see over the webinar but you could turn these on or off from your document tab. It just kind of highlights the major grid lines. The next thing is if you ever want to reach the help menu, you can press the question mark up here or just press F1 on your keyboard. And what that will take you to is the help guide in your preferred browser. And so what you could come to is the API guide, and what's new, you just click on API guide. And from here, you could read up on how the API is used with Mathcad Prime 7. And so you can use this to develop your own applications if that's something you do. So that's kind of just everything that's new in Mathcad Prime 7. The last thing I have to show is if we come to the input output tab is the file converter. And so I'm going to open and add in a worksheet. So I'll convert this first to show what it is. So I have a bidirectional interpretation, linear interpretation worksheet from Mathcad 15. We see its version here. If I click on convert, it's going to convert the worksheet. So we see that it's in progress. And you can add multiple worksheets here. So this will run and convert them all for you. And what we'll see when it's completed, we'll get converted here. And it's going to tell you, a little bit of information, where it's saved. And also it's going to tell you what might be different in your sheet. And so we see that this told me that there's some display differences, but the accuracy of our results was not, affected. And so what we can do is we can now compare these worksheets. So again, this kind of goes back to what I was saying, is if you're planning to, upgrade to Mathcad Prime 7, one thing you should definitely do is convert sheets if you're using Mathcad 15 or earlier, and confirm that they converted properly. So I'll close this worksheet and open up my Mathcad 15 worksheet here. And so we see kind of how the sheet works. I have a little function down here, this bidirectional interpolation, and I have my test cases. And so you could kind of note these values if you want, but it does convert over properly, and we could come and confirm that if I close this and open up the Mathcad Prime 7 version that was converted. And we'll see that, this was all brought over. If I bring it over in to my draft view, now we can confirm that, these values are all the same. And what we see is we have these little red arrows, and these are the regions that were changed by that conversion. So what the converter told us was different. And if you noted it or saw it, these values are the exact same. So it might just display a little bit different. But we confirm that these changes are all good. Everything still works in this sheet, and so we can see that this all works as intended. And so that's how the converter works. Again, I have Mathcad 15 installed still, but you do not actually need Mathcad 15 installed anymore with the Mathcad Prime 7 converter. And so that kind of brings this to an end. Again, it's a little bit of a quicker webinar here. So with that in mind, I showed kind of all the changes and talked about the sunsetting. If you have any other further questions, I'm opening the floor up to a Q&A right now, and you can look in the questions pane to pose your questions, or in the chat, and I'll get to them. Past that, if you kind of think of a question down the road, my email is right here. Feel free to email me, any questions you might have about Mathcad Prime 7 or anything earlier to discuss it. Our sales email is also here. Finally, you can find this webinar as well as other previous webinars on our YouTube channel. If you just YouTube and search for Boundary Systems and go to our channel, you could find previous webinar recordings, or you can go to our website, either or. So now I'll open this up to some questions. So the first question I see is, in regards to training for transitions between Mathcad 15 and Prime 7, that's a good question, and that's something that's still under development. We're working to look into what we can do. It will more than likely be just kind of taking an intro to Mathcad Prime 7 class, but we're going to be assessing if there's some kind of development course available where we'll skip the basics and more just focus on the differences. Is the converter going to be a separate license? And the answer to that is no. So if you have a Mathcad Prime 7 license, which you can have if you have an active Mathcad Prime subscription, the converter is automatically, you get this by default. It's not a separate license. Another question is common issues with this converter. Right now, I'm not aware of any. This kind of just comes down to a case-by-case basis. Like you could see here, we have things like programming and functions. They're all brought over fine. The only difficulties I would assume you might see is if there are a difference in function names maybe between the two. But right now, it's I don't have like a list of any common issues. It's kind of just you'd have to go in, do the conversion, and see if you run into issues. Will you be able to open files from Mathcad 15 on Prime 7? So no, you have to convert it first. Now, when you do the converter, to be clear, the converter doesn't get rid of your Mathcad 15 sheet. So my Mathcad 15 sheet is right here. It just creates a new file for the Mathcad Prime version. So there's no deleting of files, you'll still have it, but you do need to convert it to open it in Prime 7. If you have a current Prime 6 license, can you upgrade to Prime 7? The answer to that is yes. Does Prime 7 Express have the converter is a question. So that's something I'd have to look into and I can get back to you on. What I know you definitely can do is if you download Prime 7 Express, it always comes with like a 30-day free trial of the Prime functionality. You just give them an email, if you input like an email, which will then allow you to use the full functionality. But I'd have to check and see if Express has the converter. Can you copy from Mathcad 15 to Prime 7? Again, the best thing to do would be to just use the converter. That will kind of just bring your sheet over, then you could go from there and copy from there, copy and paste from the converted worksheet. Another question is, what about 14 to 7? Yeah, so anything that's is the earlier Mathcad, so the MathSoft Mathcad versions, so 15, 14, and earlier, the converter is able to handle those. That's what PTC kind of has worked on. The majority of this build on is the Symbolic Engine and this converter to ensure that it works. Again, just to show conversion, it's a pretty simple process. You just kind of come to the input output, click on the converter, add a worksheet, and you just have to select a worksheet you want to convert. And then the last step is you have to convert, click the little convert button, and that will actually go in and convert it. I already converted this, so I can't do it again, but that's what will let you do a conversion. So it looks like that is all the questions so far. I'll give it another minute or so. But again, just to throw my email up here. Current slide, make it large. This is my email. If you have any other questions you think of down the road, please feel free to email me them, and I'll reach back out to you, as soon as I can to get you an answer. And yeah, it looks like the questions have stopped. So, we just got one more question. I got a question about can Excel and CAD objects and Mathcad be converted in 7? Might need you to clarify. I might reach out to you a little bit after regarding that question. Not exactly sure what you're. If you're asking, does Mathcad Prime 7 have like Excel capabilities, like embedding in Excel? Yes, we has like Excel components, and this can be used in Creo or with CAD objects. Just to show the YouTube channel real quick. So let's just go to youtube.com, then search for boundary systems. So if you just go to youtube.com and search for boundary systems, you can come to our page here. This webinar won't be posted till tomorrow. But yeah, it will be up, and it'll be the most recently uploaded one. Yeah. Oh, okay. So if you have Excel sheets as inserted objects, yeah, you would be able to go in and just do the converter still. Yes. If you want to test it, you can always reach out to me by email. I can do the conversion for you and send you both sheets back if you want. But yeah, that will get converted. Okay. Yep. So that rounds up all the questions. And so I'll be closing out the webinar here. I hope you all have a good rest of your days.